I mean, you are obviously quarantined like the rest of us. Again, I hope everything is going well for you guys and your families. Traders happen to be a unique subset of people in this calamity, in this sort of chaos. Ron, I know you've been at your desk aggressively every single day, correct?
Correct. How can you not be?
Correct. I have as well. I kind of stopped last week. I kind of just stopped, and then I was sitting in my apartment, just reading and just kind of moping around. And then I was like, hold on, man. I'm a fucking trader, yo. This is I'm a trader, man. Let me get back to work, you know? And so I came back here to this office and I was just like, you know what? I'm literally just going to sit here and just invest my time right here. This is what I know how to do. And, you know, this is where I'm at. So as traders here, we get to see, you know, the reaction of all this stuff first and foremost. And, you know, it's pretty interesting here. So without further ado here, I'd like to intro a very, very good friend of mine and a recent collaborator of Ron and Lucci. He's helped me discover a lot of new paths that I could go in my own trading. And as most of you guys have realized, being traders, you know, you will always kind of find something new in your career and slowly start to try to incorporate it, you know, into your overall learning, into your overall approach. You know, maybe there's some things that you haven't thought about. Maybe there's some things that, you know you need to work on, but you haven't had the motivation and everything. And Ron, this gentleman here, Ron Friedman, who goes by the name Ronchero, and you know, we'll talk about the reason why he selected that name, of course, and his background. But in comes this gentleman here, and you know, he's been able to kind of guide me on a different path, some different types of strategies as well, and he's kind of opened up some of those strategies to the Ron and Lucci universe, to the Wall Street Jesus universe as well. And we appreciate him very much for that. And allow me to introduce this gentleman right here. His name is Ron Friedman here. Ron, let's get a little background here on yourself, you know, and how you found the community and what you're up to over there.
So I have been actively trading the markets, and sometimes passively, and sometimes I've had some gaps of time where I wasn't trading. I've blown up accounts several times, and the foundation of my strategy basically emanated out of that. It was, you know, right now what we're experiencing is unique in the market, and I needed something to protect myself from this type of event. So, you know, I've been trading probably since the early 90s, and blew up an account after 9/11, blew up an account in 08, and then learned from early on from a guy who was a market maker in Philly on the options exchange. I needed a way to be able to understand how I can not just be a one-way trader. To me, it was just, hey, I'm going to catch some momentum. I'm going to buy a call and I'm going to ride it. And you know, that strategy works when you're in a market like we just came out of. It's fine, but you need to have something else in your bag, because if you don't, you're just cannon fodder. Everybody who just made all of this easy money that didn't think about the other side and how to protect
Robin Hood
it.
crew, the Robin Hood crew, the Wall Street Bets crew, the Wall Street Bets crew. You know, and not to cut you off, Ron, but like 90% of the traders that we run through in every chat room, on Twitter, and anybody who trades options, like, what do you guys do? Come on. You guys know what you do. You know, what are your strategies right now? Most of y'all are going long options only, or most of y'all will take one strategy that, you know, has been working for maybe, you know, and most of the time it's bull calls. Most of the time it's fucking bull calls on a sector that shit is working. So you're buying Amazon every single day and then you sell it. And then all of a sudden you think you're a goddamn genius. And then we are a product of what we go through, man. And when Ron told me this story, and when he just kind of, you know, ended up in the universe. And when Ron told me the story and what he created as a result, I was like, that fucking makes sense. This makes perfect sense. And then I looked at myself and I was like, shit, we're all similar. We're all very similar. And we have these pain points in our strategies, right? We got these pain points in our strategies. Maybe you haven't done, you know, maybe you haven't spent the time yet to look at them. But those that have, you know, you're looking at those pain points, you know they're there, but maybe you're also not doing anything about them. That's number two. And then number three is like, okay, what can I actually do? And I was all three of those. And then finally, like, you know, whether through my own experience or from Ron or whatever, you start to realize like, okay, if I at least come up with some solutions to these pain points, I can stay alive. I can stay alive. I can breathe. I can keep the same capital that I have, and I can bounce back hard. And I don't have to deal with something as catastrophic as many people are dealing with now, unfortunately. So, you know, that's another way to deliver the same message that Ron was just saying. Continue, Ron, man. This is great, man. So
yeah. So I mean, you know, from a standpoint of catastrophe, like what's going on right now, a total victory for any trader is to be able to say, I sidestepped this, or after all of this went, you know, excuse the phrase, tits up. But when that happens, are you break even or are you green? Did you, you know, because break even is a huge victory.
Break even is a motherfucking W.
It's a huge victory.
And you know what the biggest, and Ron, you know, and again, this is me and you, maybe we're just shooting the shit over here. Like the biggest issue for me this month, and you know, since this happened, is just the attachment to not blowing it out the fucking park. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But
yep.
I'm alive, baby. I'm alive. I got all the same chips I had before.
Exactly.
I'm fucking alive, baby, which means I got, you know, I'm good, man. I feel good. I feel fucking good about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just breaking even. I feel better about it. Before, I would be pissed off. Oh, my God, that person made $1 million. That person made $2 million. Who gives a shit? The $1 million is going to come anyway. I'm fucking alive, baby.
Yeah. And
I'm alive.
And in this mess, you know, as well as I do, you can't just decide this is the bottom and this is where we're going to go. We might get some mini sweeps where they last for, let's say, 3 days or 4 days like we just had, but the machines are in control and we're trying to find trigger points, because once you find the trigger point, you saw what happened at the end of the day again today.
Again. And
if you're not set up for that, you wipe out the entire day. So you have to know that games are going to be played. You have to understand, where do we try and find these trigger points? And then am I going to be able to take those victories, stack them up, and then when the time is right, reapply the strategy that we just came out of? So you're taking several different strategies and you're recognizing what kind of environment we're in and you're applying the correct strategy. You can't just come in and say, this is my strategy and I want to apply it now. Because if you do that, you will just get run over again and again and again.
Indeed. But let's go a little bit more on your bio, right? So you came out of those two destructive environments and you were like, okay, I link up with this options market maker, you know, and this guy obviously is giving you a whole world of shit that you were just like, oh man, I knew, you know, maybe you knew this was there, but you never just actually did it, similar to a lot of us. So what, I guess when did you start on that new path, and when did you start this strategy that you're going to let us know about right now?
So I started working with him back in 2009 and 2010. Okay. And I probably spent about, let's call it 3 years of intense study to conceptually understand what it was that he was trying to tell me. And it's not that hard. I'm just kind of an idiot, and I needed to put myself through it again and again and again until it finally stuck. Because you can look at something and say, that's what I'm supposed to do. But when you actually got to click the mouse, it's a whole different story, right?
I mean, imagine all the people that we teach. Imagine all the people that you and I teach. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's one thing to say the shit, but it's another to do it. It's like that scene from Margin Call when they're all in the boardroom.
Oh, yeah.
And they have to tell the CEO, like, what the fuck is going on? The CEO's like, listen, explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old child or a golden retriever.
I
you
love
know?
that.
All right. So 2010, you start this new thing, and then,
So,
you know.
yep. So I start working with this market maker, and basically, I'll just give you the highlight of the strategy. The highlight of the strategy is basically stock replacement. I call it trading the post, but stock replacement. So the core of that is using options as the same way to control underlying stock. So buying stock, like if I want to buy 1,000 shares of Microsoft, I've got to come out of pocket 150 grand, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So if I know that I want to control Microsoft in the future and I want 1,000 shares, and let's say that I believe right now we've reached a bottom, and I'm thinking, hey, we're going to get back to 190 over the next 12 months, right?
Okay.
I'm willing to buy Microsoft here, but what I'd like to do is not have as big of a capital outlay. I don't want to be a shareholder, because the only way as a shareholder I can make money is to sell the stock.
Okay.
So number one, I've reduced my exposure by looking at a leap, which is basically an option that expires far out in time.
Okay. So an example of a Microsoft Leaf would be going out to friggin' January, January next year.
Exactly. So, what we're doing here is we're looking for something that's in the money, right? And right. I use, and I know you don't like it, but the reason I use the Greeks is to give me, it's just a dashboard. So I'll look for an 80 delta leap, especially in an environment like this, because we've sold off. And when the stock recovers, what I need to know is how much is my option going to move for each point that Microsoft moves. So if I've got an 80 delta, I know my option's going to move 80 cents, right?
Got it.
The other thing is it also tells me, hey, 80 delta, I have an 80% chance that at the point of expiration, this option is going to be in the money, right?
In the money, okay.
Right. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen. It just says there's an 80% chance, right?
Sure.
It's just probability, that's all. So what we do is we look for that. We look for a good entry. And how do we find good entries, right? So I look at a chart like Microsoft, and the immediate thing that I do is I look left on that chart. You see that little green candle? You just passed over it. All the way to keep going left.
Yep.
Further out in time, down lower, down lower, down lower, there.
Down lower, right there.
You just passed it. Come back.
Right there.
Yep. So, I'm looking at that. That looks like an area to me that in the long term had some support. It's where Microsoft broke out before, right? So do I think that's a good area to either, to get in? It probably is a decent area for me to look to get in, right? I don't know. I don't know what the future is going to hold, but that's a strategy where I'm getting Microsoft at a big discount.
Right.
I'm buying a leap at a discount. I'm getting one that has a fat delta. And instead of putting out 150 grand, I'm only putting out, let's just say those 135s. Let's say I want to buy 10 of those.
Yep.
So instead of putting out 150 grand, I'm putting out 27 grand.
27
with the same level of control. So I've reduced my capital exposure.
Yep.
I've reduced my risk. And now I get to participate if Microsoft moves up. Let's say Microsoft moves up 10 bucks.
Right.
Well, if I'm the shareholder, the only option I have is to sell to keep my profit. For me, as the option contract holder, my choices are I get to roll up, right?
Yep.
So if I'm in a 135, I can roll to a 145.
Right.
So let's say the 135 now increases in value from 28 to 35 bucks a contract, right?
Yep.
I pocket that difference. And at the same time, I look left on my chart again and I say, have I reached an area where I'm resisting? Is this an area where tape could change on me? Yeah, it is. Okay, I've rolled up. Now I can go ahead and I can start writing weeklies against those leaps, right? So now I'm collecting premium. So the goal for me when I do this is to get that leap paid for as quickly as possible, so that over time what happens is that leap becomes a free trade. Right. All of the money has gone back into my pocket.
Right.
All I have to do is continue to roll, etc. Now at the same time, if we have a market like we have right now, I can start to look on a daily basis and start playing it short term, whether it's to the upside or whether it's to the downside. I can start playing, I can start playing short-term puts. I can start playing short-term calls. There's, a couple of different games that I can start playing around that core position.
Okay.
So that's the basis of what I learned. Okay. The enhancement to that is, well, how do I protect myself in case of a downturn like we just had?
Right.
So, the other tool that we use is the VIX. So if you want to pull up VIX.
Yep. Which one?
Just VIX, just
VIX.
not VXX, but VIX. The VIX is a control panel, right? For me, it just tells me when is long-term, long-dated put protection at its cheapest. Well, in our room, what we were doing to protect our long-term portfolios when VIX was below 12, we were buying 20 delta, 9 months out, 12 months out, SPY, Diamond, and Q puts.
Got it.
And why did we buy those? Look at the freaking VIX today.
Right.
Those calls went from $2.50, $3 to $45.
Yep.
So even though we were in long-term plays, we were in Ulta at the time, we were in Boeing at the time, because Ulta moved up, because Boeing moved up, because we rolled those contracts up, and because we were writing against them, our leaps were paid for. So when the market corrected, our protective puts put more money into our pockets.
Right. So you're saying the protective puts on the Qs, the protective puts on, the VIX,
diamonds,
or sorry, the protective calls on the VIX, the diamonds and all that kind of stuff. That basically made, your whole. Now, are you still holding those leaps? You'd still be holding.
Yeah,
those
because
leaps,
I just get to write against them. They're paid for. The money was already banked. I don't have to care about them. If they come back, they're just lottery tickets at this point.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. So for the folks of you guys, how many of you guys are fucking lost right now? How many of you guys, this is a great, how many of you guys are fucking completely lost right now? I was smiling in the middle of that because the key failure to one of my strategies is exactly what he was talking about. I mean, if you literally just use VIX as an indicator on how the market looks and feels, you can start making the moves that you need to make. Like, for example, my writing strategy, and what I do is I usually just write weekly options and just pocket the premium with a little bit of automation to hedge. That strategy is fucking useless right now. Absolutely useless because of the picture, because of where the VIX is right now. And if from a long-term perspective, I take that strategy and I add in components like, hey, VIX shot over this certain level, things are getting a little bit more volatile here. Why don't you either calm the fuck down or add some of these protections, which are cheap as fuck anyway. Why not add this to backstop your particular strategy and keep you alive? Not only keep you alive, but keep you fucking eating as well. So Ronchero kind of just gave you the basics of the trading the post strategy. This is a strategy that we're effectively throwing capital behind. We're throwing support behind. Sang Lucci and Wall Street Jesus are supporting this whole strategy because we want all of our traders to think like this. We want all of our traders to do this shit because right now 90% of them are sitting there just going long options, long puts, long calls, which is great in certain types of environments and certain types of mentalities. But if that's all you got in your tool bag, at some point, somebody's going to come knocking on that door and that's your broker. And, all your cash is it disappears pretty quickly. So going back to the particular strategy here, how do you feel like, it's taught? I guess, what do you feel like are the characteristics of a trader who can really start? I guess, where does a trader need to be to really start adopting some of this stuff? Because you and I both help a lot of traders out, but, a good amount of them, it's a lot to take in, it's a lot to take in. So how do you feel, or what kind of traders are you looking for? Or what kind of traders, or what kind of characteristics are you looking for good students for this particular strategy?
Typically it's a lot of traders who have just kind of tried a bunch of different things and just can't get it going, right? And in a market like this, applying this strategy right now is pretty difficult, right? So we work on other things when the market tells us to. So for example, if you come into the room and you're like, okay, I need to understand how I can build, like I just described, something up. But at the same time, because the market is so crazy, we'll work on other skills because at some point in time, you need to become proficient at being able to write against your leaps. And in a market like this, it's critical to learn, especially where are how do we find those areas of where things are gonna get sparked and make big moves up and down? Learning those types of skills gets applied to the strategy later. So if you're somebody who's looking for, I need some kind of discipline and method and to have a plan, and you just don't have one, this is a really good environment for you to be in. It's structured. It has a method to its madness. We have 3 different viewpoints, and we don't just talk about 3 different viewpoints. We actually go over, real time. I'll be in the room with the traders in real time. I'll say, okay, here's where we're looking for a trigger point, and we'll put on test trades. Okay, we'll either look at options or we'll look at common, because in this market right now, options are very, very difficult. You've got to catch big moves to make them work. So we can practice with 100 share lots of stock when we're messing around with short-term movement, and then we're looking at medium-term swing and long-term. Is this going to be an investment opportunity just like it was in 2009, right? Because this has the type of potential to create life-changing money for people. I don't want to pump it up and make it sound like some crazy sales pitch, because I can't guarantee that you'll actually be able to make that happen. What I am saying is that the opportunity is starting to present itself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. 100%. All right. So I guess during this chaos and all that kind of stuff, and these people want to know, and we gotta, Ronchero is also going to become a large part of the education in St. Lucci and Wall Street Jesus. And he's going to become a large part of this whole crew. He's kind of like the dad we never had. That's what he is. He's kind of like the dad we never had, who comes at the game with like, all right, listen, you fucking youngins, like, I get it. I was you know what I mean? And there's always opportunity. I mean, we see, you guys watch all that Wall Street bet shit. I mean, these motherfuckers are crazy, man. They are insane, man. We'll see people going all in on this stuff, and we've done all that. Him and I have done all that shit. But again, Ronchero, you got to realize, like, in trading, the more wisdom you have, it's not only from the strategy perspective that you're getting the wisdom, but it's also from the psychology perspective that you're also getting the wisdom as well.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Because of all the freaking chaos that Ronchero had to go through himself, he's able to kind of give us a way to backstop some of the wild shit that he knows we're fucking doing. You're fucking doing. You're out there acting like a dickhead. A lot of the times that you sit there and hit these buttons, we all have to do better at structuring some of the stuff that we do, creating a little bit of methodology to as far as hedging. How many of you guys actually hedge your positions? How many of you guys actively hedge your positions on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a portfolio basis, whatever? How many of you guys actually fucking do this? I'm willing to bet that over 50% of you guys do not even consider it. You don't even consider it. And most of our guys that are in the room, they might look at the chat room, and let me go ahead and pull this up here. Let me just share.
Everybody thinks I'm high when I tell them it's time to hedge. Everybody's like, no way, exactly. That is stupid. I'm like,
exactly.
Okay.
And there's a reason why we believe that, right? There's a reason why we believe that. We get biased. You guys get biased. This is what happens, right? So all of a sudden, market moves in a certain direction. You get biased. You put on the trade. You think you're good. And then, bam, especially in this market, shit will go right up against you. And Ronchero is going to force you. He's going to force you to examine that bias and put a hedge on when you don't fucking want to. And most of the time, that's when you have to. I'll give you guys a perfect example. I got super biased today on SPY going to, on ES going to 2,700. And then boom, program happens at the close, which is the same thing that happened, Wednesday, the same shit that happened, so many closes. And bam, I got stung. So again, there are places where we need to check ourselves. So I want to do this. I want to bring Ronchero in to help my community, which is the Sang Lucci and Wall Street Jesus community, stay alive, man. Oh, that's it. That's all we got to do. The money we figured out already. We figured that shit out already. You know, Wall Street Jesus gives us plenty of opportunity to make money. That shit is always there. All right. But what do you do when shit hits the fan? Your strategy stops fucking working. And what do? Most of y'all do not have the answers. And if you don't have the answers, this is the next step. This is the next evolution for you, you know, and you know you need it. But again, most of you guys don't know how to go about it. You don't know what to do, you know, as far as the strategy, or you don't fucking want to at this moment in time because you're stubborn as shit. You know, one of those freaking reasons. So again, this is why we're bringing in Ron here to kind of bring our own education, bring Sang Lucci education as well to the next level. So what are some of your results, man? What are some of your results, man? Let's put it out there. You know, these guys got to know. These guys got to know. You one of the boys now, bro. You one of the boys now.
So, you know, I mean, Biogen was a perfect example. While the sun was shining and everybody was out making money on Amazon and, you know, Microsoft and everything else, you know, one of our core positions was Biogen, and we had to sit in Biogen for, I don't know, 8 or 9 months while it traded inside of a channel, right?
Okay. That's this right here. That's all.
Yeah,
this
but
right here?
go back further in time.
Okay, let's do a couple of years.
Yep. So do you see all that chop down there?
Right here. Yes.
We had to sit in Biogen for that period of time. Now, we didn't care, because over the course of that time, what we did was we wrote against the leap that we had. Now, do you see the big old gap to the right?
Of course, I remember.
That's a 90-point pop.
I remember this day, and
our
everybody
leaps were already paid for.
And exactly, how many of you guys? Let me throw it to you guys. How many of you guys have a strategy to trade this bullshit right here? How many of you guys have a strategy right now to trade this shit right here? Come on, let's be real. Some of you guys write options, you know, and maybe you guys can, you know, maybe you guys can book some money here and there. But most of us would sit there and look at a stock like this and be like, why the fuck would I even trade this thing? Yep. Right? But again, yeah, right. We'd look at it as it's completely freaking dead money. But there's a reason here. There's a reason. You know, you kind of want to dip buy this, but you don't want to sit there and spend the time. And when I think this was actually the first trade that you threw out to me, and I looked at it, I was like, I understand what the fuck he's doing, but I'm just like, shit. So it's like, okay, you're taking a great company here, you're taking a, you know, and you're basically going for the dip buy, but you're paying for the premium outlay for the leap just by selling all the bullshit around it.
Exactly.
And okay, so my problem, I guess, and I don't want to say, not problem, it's just an adjustment I need to make, is that, you know, how do you manage all this stuff while also having other, you know, strategies and trades on at the same time? Do you find that's a big issue for a lot of traders to be able to deal with? Like, is there a learning curve?
Of course, there's a learning curve. You can't just come in and expect to, you know, to nail one of these, because what happens is, people will get in, they'll get into a position. And if you don't get into a position, you know, let's say at the right entry point, and let's say you're a guy that only has a limited amount of money. Let's say you come in there and you've got $5,000. What happens to the guy that comes in with 5,000 is you're not patient, right? You get scared, you get skittish, you buy a leap that, let's say, is $18, and through the normal gyration back and forth of the price of the stock, let's say you buy it at 18, and then, you know, next week you come in and it's trading 12. That puts pressure on people, right?
Can we also pull up a which option? So you went for the Biogen, and which leap did you have? Was it the Junes?
It's a while ago, so I don't remember.
Okay.
They were.
I'm just thinking if I can pull it up right now, or you know,
because what happens too is, over time, is you eventually roll up, and then you roll out at a certain point in time too, right? So over time, what happened was we had rolled up a few times and we had rolled out, so it does change hands,
right?
And then, you know, of course, you're writing the weeklies now. You know, from my standpoint, I have two separate accounts and two separate strategies. One is for this strategy, the long-term strategy.
Right.
The other account I have is for scalping, right?
It's for scalping. Okay. And
right.
are you scalping? Are you generally scalping the same names that you're watching?
Not always, but a lot. Not always, but a lot. And the other key to it is we don't look at every single stock under the sun. We try to selectively find what we think is going to be a smart play. We're looking for companies that are solid companies that took a 50% haircut or more.
Right.
In this market, I'd love to grab, an NVIDIA, a Microsoft.
Right. But you just, it's not advantageous to do it
I just don't know that this is the right spot yet, right?
Right.
And look what they do. Look what they do to NVIDIA, right? Like, I mean, hit 194. I looked at it. I was like, I think I should do this here. And then, 3 days later, it's 250. I'm like,
I hit you up. Hit you. I remember hitting you up. I remember hitting you up for the same thing. I was like, these things all kind of, they all kind of fit the pattern, but the market's a little bit different. So there is a little bit of discretion though that you do have. And by the way, Ronchero is there to kind of walk you through this. Like, I've also watched him teach some of my guys. You know what I'm saying? I've also watched him actively teach some of my guys, and he does a lot more babying than I do. I watch him, you know what I mean? And I don't want to say babying, but he definitely takes care of of my guys a lot more than I ever would. For me, like, listen, get your fucking shit together and let's go. Let's go. Like, if you're making the same problems and all that kind of, like, most traders, they got to get through like an emotional barrier. You know what I mean? And for me, it's like the kind of the dad that you just hated when you were growing up. It's like, listen, dude, shut the fuck up and let's get it together. So Ronchero really kind of pulls you through this because, again, there's a lot of different components to this, so even though we can look at BIIB and see what he's doing, there's a lot of places that you need to know where you should, start writing premium, where you should, take some off, where, there's a lot of little things that are happening here while they're collecting that premium to pay for the leap. And also when to roll, right? When to roll, when to write, so there's a lot of different moving pieces that you're bringing together. Tell me how much you're bringing in, the tape science, the wise guy stuff that Wall Street Jesus is throwing out there. Tell me how much you're also throwing that in when you're teaching.
So we also, part of the beauty of this, of the strategy is that a lot of being able to pick spots and understanding what options to use and to lever, et cetera, is what I bring to the table. It also gets reinforced by you in the master course. And you don't need to be a master tape reader to apply this strategy. So a lot of guys who struggle with tape or don't know tape can adapt to this strategy because so much of what we're doing is we're looking left on a chart for areas of support and resistance. And lo and behold, when those areas of support and resistance finally show up, guess what? The guy who doesn't know tape or is struggling to read tape all of a sudden can see, oh, now I see the change in the tape. And it all ties back to looking left, looking for those areas of support and resistance, right? There's a lot of information in the charts that you can gather without having to be a perfect chartist or technical analyst. We can pick up a lot and keep it simple and do really well without having to, put it under a microscope.
Okay. All right. So before we talk about Ronchero's outlook here on the next couple of weeks, let's take a couple of questions. This chat has been popping here with questions on the what are we writing here? All kinds of stuff. So anybody whose questions we haven't gotten to, just go ahead and rethrow them out there and we'll get through a couple of questions and then we're going to close with Ronchero's overall outlook here, strategy for the next couple of weeks. Bull Shark, you're seeing what's the time frame on the charts you're generally looking at, yearly or weekly, and that's specifically for the trading the post strategy.
We look every day. We come in and we remind ourselves of big pictures, medium term, and short term. So I start and we look at, hey, here's what a monthly chart looks at. Let's look left for those areas of support and resistance. Right. Here's a 1 week. here's a daily, here's a 4-hour, here's a 15-minute, here's a 5-minute. And we go from big to small,
right.
and we come up with a plan for that particular day, right? So that's how we use the time frames. They help give you those areas of support and resistance where you can find trigger points.
Okay. What kind of a, Doggy's got a good one. What kind of account size on the small size, could you start with for this particular strategy? Because a lot of traders are going to run into the issue where, hey, okay, I'm locked in on this one particular leap, and I'm going to write stuff around it, but I can't really do much else. And I know that's probably a strong impediment to for a lot of traders. A lot of traders won't. They won't want that, of course, but
I mean, you can't sugarcoat that. If you step into the marketplace with $2,000, $5,000, I mean, I started with $5,000, right? And I was in a same situation as a lot of guys were. This was after blowing up 3 times. I had to scrape together $5,000, and I was like, okay, my strategy at that time, because this was back after the 2009 crash, was I'm going to have to buy something, and I'm going to have to hold, and I'm going to have to endure until I get to a point to where my account will allow me to be able to day trade, right? To be able to write more actively. You can still have an account with margin. You just have to watch how often you're trading, right? And there's no other way to get around it too than to say you are going to have to take more outsized risk if you want to get a bigger return. It's really hard to grow $5,000 if you don't take risk. There's no easy way to say that. Just the reality of what
I've done it.
is.
We've all had to do it, and we've been able to go from $5,000 to millions of freaking dollars. So, but again, we are traders who have went through a good amount of pain to figure out how to, take those kind of gambles on a small amount of cash to get us to a place where we can fucking calm the fuck down and start trading like mature people.
This is the market. The market conditions do exist today, right now, though, for people with smaller account balances to make 100%. A real difference.
100%. If you guys got the small accounts and you got some discipline and you understand about options, and again, like this is who I teach. I teach that subset of people, because they, oftentimes they don't understand why an option is priced the way it is, where you want to take risk like that, teaching them tape. That way they cut their decisions down or they cut the amount of trades down, so that's my group of people. Then we have a whole slew of people who have turned a small amount of money into 50 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand, $500,000. Now they want to know what's next. And now they want to support themselves, and now they want to make sure they don't fucking throw it all away. And this is where Ronchero comes in. All right, so everybody here is asking about freaking how the hell do we write? What the hell am I writing against? Honestly, the asshole in me is like, listen, y'all can all just buy this damn course and shut the fuck up. However, we got to give them something. We got to give them something, right? So we got a couple questions here on when you write premium. Can you talk about where you're placing it, how far out? A couple other people are asking, what delta should we be looking for when we're writing premium against our leaps or against a core position? Give them a little bit.
Yeah. So if you're writing against something, first of all, in this environment right now, wow, sketchy, right? It's difficult to write in this environment.
I'll tell you right now, if you are writing right now and you get stuck in some shit like this, you will get hosed. You will get hosed. I'm telling you right now, this is my world and this is what's happening to me. Luckily, I've learned enough that even if I get hosed, I'm okay, man. I'm still okay. I got my hedges. I'm still fine, However, for most folks who, let's say they want to start writing or whatever, right now, if you get stuck in a program like this, which, by the way, could happen Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it could happen Sunday night, it could happen friggin', at 2 o'clock in the morning, it could happen whenever, and you wake up to the worst situation,
that can, does, and will happen in this type of environment.
It will. That's why we need Ronchero to just kind of force us to. He's like the dad. I'm telling you, he's like the dad. Like, listen, if you're gonna fucking do it, just put the shit on. Just put the hedge on. Put the hedge on, and you'll end up making all that shit back and then some. you know?
We start. So the other thing that we do is we have a plan. We have a plan for as much as we can possibly not see. We know what to do. So, for example, if the guys in the room are writing something and it goes against them, they know how to morph that trade to get them back to either break even or green. We spend a lot of time going over that, and it takes a lot of nerve to be able to click the button to do it. So it can be done, and our, the guys in that room know. I've got almost all of them have had to morph something at one time or another, and they've all come out either break even or green because they did what I told them to do. And we spend a lot of time on staying calm, looking at our, looking left, looking at those levels. Okay, it didn't work. How do we fix it? How do we get ourselves back to even? So I'm not going to let you come in and just blow up, but if you don't follow what we teach you to do, that potential exists. As far as writing against something, typically I'll give 3 different types of scenarios and say, hey, this write is super aggressive, this write is mildly aggressive, and this particular write is more on the safe side. So you might come in and we're not looking at deltas when we write. We're looking for how close to the money and how close to a resistance point do we want to write? Do you want to write right at the money? If you do, you'll get great premium, but you take on added risk. Do you want to write further away from the money? There's less risk, and then further away from the money, you take on less risk, right? So my standpoint is to come at it from as conservative as possible, and then give you the scenarios as to how much risk you want to take when you're placing that trade. So some guys are really good at taking something that's at the money, because we know at the money options on expiration day expire the fastest, right?
And those guys are all tape readers. Those guys are tape readers.
Yep.
Those guys are tape readers. So again, hence where a lot of the other strategies that we're going to teach you, just in the St. Lucci course in general, it's also going to help you a shit ton with selecting how far out of the money you want to go, how close to the money you want to go, how much risk you actually want to put on the table, because most traders, they don't understand that fucking risk. And tape guys, they're willing to edge it a little bit here because they have a little bit more edge here in the game. So
and most importantly, if that blows up in your face, how do we calmly get you to fix that mistake? Because it's going to happen. There is no getting around it. It will happen. You will be forced to morph at some point in time. It's just the way it is.
Indeed. All right. Let's do one more question here on the writing here. When you write the weeklies against your leaps, are you writing, this week's, are you writing 30 days out? Are you writing, are you specifically attacking the short term?
So this fits the small account question too. Sure. If you're somebody who has a smaller account, we're trying to get you to be a little bit more conservative with your writes and write maybe once a week, right?
Okay.
If you've got a larger account, or you're better at doing this, and you don't have to worry about PDT, we'll look to write something, if we can, every single day. If I can collect 50 cents, or if I can collect $1 or 75 cents every single day, why wouldn't I do that? Because my goal is to get the leap paid for as quickly as possible. And we don't go into these leaps and say we're all or none. We leg into them. We do them in quarter positions. So if I get a quarter position paid for, I can go get another quarter position, right? And then I go pay that one off. So if I get to a full size of, let's say, 50 contracts on something, and it's completely paid for, and then we have a day that, you get a 90-point rip, that's a really good day. That's a really good day, right?
And by then, you don't even give a shit, though. That's the beauty.
Because it's paid for. You don't care.
By then, you don't even give a shit, though. And that's what, part of me is missing, in this particular strategy. I think the number one thing for me is just earmarking, a certain amount of capital for a particular strategy. I still haven't even gotten to that part. And I think the key is, you having 2 accounts and you being able to separate, what you're doing and separate these things out is a big step. And again, that's something that, me personally, I gotta work on myself. All right. So, let's go to your let's go to your outlook here. What are you thinking here for the next couple of weeks? Let's give these good folks an idea on what to look for, things.
I kind of think we're in the middle.
Yeah.
I don't have a good read on it because, when I don't spend a lot of time on CNBC or Twitter because it really affects how you trade, right? I stay off of that stuff during market hours. I mean, a lot of times when we're doing this, I will blank everything out. I'll just put some music on and I'll just sit there and I will focus on just what we're doing right at that particular moment in time.
Right.
So it can be hard to see a mile down the road when we're sitting here going 20 feet at a time. And the case for SPY 180, that exists.
Yep.
The case for SPY going back to highs, that exists too. So I think we're in the middle. I don't know what's going to happen the next 2 weeks. So I can't say to my guys right now, hey, we're planting a flag in the sand on Microsoft. What I can say is, hey, right now we have opportunities for short-term trades directionally, and we're learning how and where to find the triggers to trade those. A lot of guys are doing really well. And then at the same time, we're taking those wins and we're stacking that money so that when the opportunities that come available in the big sexy ones that we're looking at a discount, we have dry powder to put to work.
You got some powder.
If we could get SPY 180, I from a trader standpoint, that's great. From a social standpoint, I don't know if that's so good. I don't know if I want to walk outside my house if SPY's at 180 because I think there's some serious, like the Night King just woke up and he's coming to cut us all down, right? Like I don't want any part of that. Yeah. But at the same time, if that's a reality, I have to be ready to capitalize on that.
Yeah, there was an interesting question actually earlier. Like, how much of the fundamentals do you use? I mean, when we're talking about a world that exists when SPY goes to 180, right? I mean, there's a good amount of fundamentals we're kind of bringing back into the picture. So how much of the fundamentals, I guess, do you mess around with?
We cover that in the Trading the Post room. Also, what we are looking for is the highest quality we can find at a discount. So I'm looking for companies that have strong balance sheets, right? We know somewhere down the road that, a company like Amazon, if we can get that thing at a discount, Amazon isn't going anywhere, right?
It ain't going nowhere.
Exactly. If I can catch a Microsoft at the right price, I'm interested in that.
If I can catch it at 120, I was looking at like 120, 120, 125, that shit would be great.
Exactly. We were trading Boeing. Obviously the story on Boeing has changed dramatically.
Yeah.
We're in Ulta, and Ulta, I think over the long term still is good. Ladies do not stop buying makeup in a recession. It's just God. Right?
Can we not talk about that? Do we have to talk about that?
So, that's one we're looking at. There's going to be a ton of opportunities and great companies to look at. We might not get everything at a 50% haircut. We might only get 30%. We might only get 20%, but we know if we're getting into something that's going to be rock solid and this is the discount and we get to ride that for the next 10 years up, right? Think about if you could have got Amazon in 2009 and used this strategy over a 10-year period, right? That would have been the only thing you needed to do.
Right. Exactly. So, and every time we come out of these crash environments, there's always that 10-year period that exists where we do nothing but go up and go up and go up.
Exactly. So we do take a look at them, but I'm not a CFA. I'm not going to break this stuff down. It's common sense, right? Can I look at a screen and can I click on some buttons and say quarter after quarter, this company consistently makes money? That's a business, not a business plan. If I click on the numbers and they've got negative earnings, that's a business plan, and that's something I skip over, right? So that's kind of 101. And then can I describe what they do? Can I tell you in a sentence what they do? Microsoft, they make software, right? Boeing, they make planes. If I've got to describe something to you, Plug Power is one that everybody loves to. I mean, please don't chase that. But I don't know, some kind of crazy fuel cell, nebulizer. Like I can't really describe that, and they don't make any money. So that's not something I can get into. So that's just kind of the highlights of how we break it down. So we do use some fundamental analysis, but we're not doing rocket surgery on it. We're using common sense.
Indeed. All right. And me personally, for my outlook, I'm similar to what Ronchero was saying. We're somewhere in the middle. We're somewhere in the middle right now. And I started to really look at, some of the stuff that's happening in the news. Obviously we have the most largest freaking stimulus package we've ever seen. And I'm looking at some of the details of where it's going and what it's going to do. But then, you know, you constantly sit there and look at Twitter and you look at the news cycle and how ridiculous the coronavirus numbers are coming out to look like, and how some of the businesses that we use are reacting to these things. You know, all these all the stores we go to at the freaking mall. You know, what is going to happen to these guys? They can't afford to pay rent for 2, 3 months, 4 months. It also shows you how over levered we always are. It's if human beings are always over levered, no matter what. I mean, even in a personal aspect, you know, Ronchero and myself, you know, some folks are not that over levered, but most people in America are fucking just over levered. And if you look at that and you just add it to the fact that these people are also running companies, running small businesses, you know, what do you think it's going to look like? I talk to so many people, so many local businesses here in Puerto Rico that have to fucking, they got to shut down, man. They got to shut down. And it's a sad freaking world. And if the stimulus package isn't enough, or if we don't quickly come out of this stuff, there's going to be some real freaking consequences. And, you know, we're going to see it in the earnings reports of these companies every single freaking quarter now. And it's going to be an interesting environment, like Ronchero said. But, you know, these environments, even though they may be choppy and they may be crazy, the opportunity, if you start to understand it, if you start to, you know, cut down some of the noise as well, man, it's just a wild opportunity. But I'm telling you right now, in order to take advantage of this opportunity, like, you need to also have different pieces and different tool sets and different things available to you that maybe you don't know are there right now. Me personally, I need some of what Ronchero has been helping you know, my guys with over and over and over. I just been avoiding it, neglecting it, or whatever. I need it because I need to stay alive until that opportunity comes my way. And that opportunity is going to come my way. It's going to come all of your way. But you need that little piece of it just to stay fucking sane, stay mental, stay there with all your capacity, so that when that opportunity does come, you know, you can hit it out the park, man. So Ronchero, man, I appreciate you coming along here, man. I appreciate you being a part of all of this as well. We have a new class coming out April, I believe. You know, and Ronchero is a huge part of this course. He goes ahead and teaches this strategy and then sits with you and really helps you fucking get it in that thick ass fucking skull of yours. How thick are these skulls out here, Ronchero, that you've seen thus far? How thick are they?
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing. So I repeat a lot of stuff. And I mean, I'll say something and then the guys will just ask me the same question again. And I'm like, yo, are you listening?
And it's even harder for him, you know. It's even harder for him. Me, you know, I get to kind of beat the crap out of you for a good month or so, you know. But I understand, though, you need more. You need a little bit more help. And Ronchero's here to do that for you. So
yeah, I mean, we don't want. The worst thing that can happen is because there's so many bad actors in this industry now. You might not, you may decide to do this and you might not jive with me or what I have to say or how I go about it. And that's fine. But the one thing that you need to know is that when you come in, you're not going to get front run. I'm not going to flip positions to you. I'm not going to do any of that shady shit that a lot of other guys do out there. I want you to be successful. I want you at some point in your life to be able to break off and do this for yourself without having to have me there holding your hand the entire time. That's the ultimate goal.
And that's why we had him here. You know what I mean? Like, I can't bring in that's why it took me so long to, you know, bring people to also add value to the course. Not only add value to understand our vibe, you know what I mean? And there's a certain vibe and there's a certain standard we have at St. Lucci and Wall Street Jesus. And Ronchero happens to fit that pretty freaking well, because all he's going to do is fucking knock us over the damn heads again and again and again and again until we get the freaking picture that, you know, that at any moment, man, at any freaking moment, man, your shit is at risk, man. You got to take care of that. We have to take care of that so we can take care of our families during shit like this freaking coronavirus. So we have options. We have, you know, we have choices. We have choices to make, and we're not screwed by the system that we live in, and we're not, you know, we're not sitting there asking for handouts, you know, and we're putting ourselves above, you know, these kinds of things that can happen and regularly do freaking happen, because they will, just like Ronchero said, they will fucking happen to you. This shit will happen to you, just like it's happening to you, to everybody right now. Who do you want to be at the end of this shit? You know what I mean? You know exactly who you want to be. And we'd like to get it. We'd like to get you over the hurdle. So again, next course, April 27th is the live start date. Start emailing us. Email us if you guys have any questions too on Ronchero strategy, which I know you do, because shit, I do as well. So yeah, we hope to see you in the months to come. The Steam Room is always available. Ronchero has his own private room in there, basically, where he teaches what he does, as well as other strategies, and really taking care of a lot of our guys as well. So, Ronchero, man, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate you.
Indeed, indeed. Take care, everybody. Good luck out there. All right, take care of your families.